Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. We will be taking your Thursday thoughts today on the Twitch pitch. If you're listening in any other place, or if you're listening to this later and you're like, what is all this stuff people are talking about? Twitch.tv/Soccer Down here. You can join the ongoing conversation. Welcome to all the new viewers and listeners hanging out this morning. We got a lot to talk about on the MLS front as teams are announcing preseason schedules. We have medical exams down here. We have all kinds of things to get into on that front. We're going to talk about Barcelona's amazing comeback yesterday to make the Copa del Rey final. We got to talk about Calapole in Argentina and the magic of the cup in the Copa Argentina. Tons of things to get into, but we'll be taking your questions and stuff throughout the show. Throw them in, and we'll ask for them as well when we get to certain points of the show. But thanks, everybody who was here off the jump. Thanks to everybody who also sent well wishes about not having a show yesterday. Not going to go into a ton of detail because it's not me. If it was me, I'd tell you, like, hey, I was sick. Like I said in the tweet, you got to take care of the people around you, and it's been a hard time lately, like it is for a lot of people. If you know anybody who suffers from anxiety, right now, and I think probably for the last little while, it's been a problem for a lot of people as the pandemic is just continuing on and on and on. And it's getting closer, and we're seeing that light at the end of the tunnel, but it's been a long time. And if you have people that you know and care about who suffer from anxiety, check in on them. Make sure everything's okay because it's tough. And somebody that I especially care about has had a lot of issues with it. And we're on the right path now. Got things kind of sorted out. We're figuring out what to do to make it right, how to adjust to the current situation. Yesterday was a day to kind of figure all that out. So thanks for everybody who was checking in on me. I appreciate that. Thanks to everybody who was checking in on all of us who do the show and everything that we do. I mean, it is a community. It is a family. And we appreciate your support in doing this because we don't get to do it if there's not people listening. And that's why we try to always deliver shows, and I'll try to always deliver content and interact with you guys. So I appreciate it. Thank you. But things are heading in the right direction. Still work to do, as always. I mean, if you guys know anxiety, it doesn't go away. You can manage it, and you can make it better, but it doesn't go away. So there's always something to do. There's always work to do. But yeah, we're heading in the right direction. So things are looking up, and we'll figure it all out as we go. And I'll keep you posted. But thanks for being patient with us. We appreciate it. I know yesterday was a big day, too, because there was a lot of things to talk about. We do have some follow-up on that. So we'll get started with the Lautaro Giannetti situation here in Atlanta because it is confusing. It is difficult to understand. But it's also not unprecedented. And I think people who follow sports, because this isn't even just a soccer thing, but I can think of quite a few different transfers that have been stopped at the last minute due to a bulky medical exam. Boca Juniors had one just a few weeks ago with a Colombian defender who was all ready to go, goes to Buenos Aires, does the test, and they're like, this doesn't look good. We're not going to do the transfer. It's happened a bunch. Think of in the NFL, probably one of the biggest things that's ever happened in free agency was Drew Brees and the medical exam in Miami that they said, no, we're not going to do it. Now, New Orleans ended up doing it, and it paid off. But you never know. And the thing about Giannetti, from what we've been able to tell, and his representation issued a statement with a lot more clarification late yesterday. He had a ACL surgery in early 2018. After he was recovering from that, had a meniscus issue, had a secondary surgical operation. I don't think it was anything too serious. That added a couple more months to his recovery. He came back and played about 60 games for Vélez since he returned. No issues that I've been able to tell from. Played a lot of those for Gabriel Heinze during his time at Vélez. But he had that not that long ago. So transfer, everything gets to the point where he comes to Atlanta, medical exams here, they find something. And it is related to that knee, his left knee. It is related to the injury that he had before. And it was to the point that it threw up a red flag on the transfer. He is returning to Buenos Aires, and they are going to do more exams because Atlanta United does the exam to go forward with the move. If there's a red flag, they're not trying to figure out how to recover him at this point. If there's a red flag to the point that, yeah, this is too risky, even if you go back and say, well, we'll give you less money because there's a risk, or we'll pay him less money because there's a risk. Even if you do that, sometimes the risk can be too large. And it sounds like that's the case here because he's going back to Buenos Aires, and he might have to have surgery. Now, with ACL stuff, people can play with ACL injuries. People can be active with ACL injuries. It's not common, but it can happen. A lot of times, you don't know you have an issue until you have this kind of exam. You know, I mean, he's played on it. I don't know if he's had discomfort. I don't know if he thought soreness was anything to worry about. We don't know. But you can't know the extent of an ACL. You can't see that's got minor tears, or that's got damage, or that's potentially going to be torn in 6 weeks or 6 months or a year. Like, there's no way to know that until you do the exam. So now he's got to go back. He's still a Vélez player. He's got to go back, get further tests to see, do I want to play through it and basically see what happens? Or do I want to correct it now to head that off and be out for an extended period of time? They won't know until they do further tests. But he is returning to Buenos Aires, which ends the move with him coming to Atlanta. It's horrible timing. I think people have to understand here that you can't know what's going on in somebody's knee until you do this. So for anybody trying to say, like, oh, it's a bad move by the front office, like, stop. You're trying to create a narrative that doesn't make sense because that's not how these things work. It's just not. It's bad luck. There was a risk because there had been a previous injury, of course. But that risk was extremely small because he had played after the previous injury and been fine. No issues. Played at a very high level. No issues. That was known about. So you have this exam, you find out, then you got to move on. Now what do you do? Because you can still bring players in. Windows in Argentina are closed, and this was the issue with Giannetti, that's why Vélez didn't want to necessarily do the move at the time because they can't replace him. So if you're going to go to Argentina, you got to find a player and a club that is willing to make a move without a replacement being brought in. You could go to Brazil, where their window is open, and they might sell somebody with the idea they could bring somebody in. I don't know if there's really any other major leagues that you're looking at that have a window open where they could bring in a replacement. Now, you can get somebody from a league that the window is closed because your window's open. But that player has to be expendable. And look, money sometimes makes players more expendable. We all know this. But that's where you are. And it's awful luck with, you try to get Martinez, and River says, you know what, we need him more. Hey, we're going to make this happen. We've got to get him. And ultimately, it was the right move for River because then Pinola breaks his arm. And now Martinez is going to be a regular starter at River. They had to do that move for their depth. Well, they did the right thing by getting Martinez because now he's indispensable for them. Then you move on to Giannetti. Looks all good. You find out there's an injury that there's no way you could have known about that is too risky to move forward. And risky to the point that he might have to have surgery to correct it now. It's bad luck. So you bounce back and you try to make the best of it. But that's where Atlanta United is. That's where the Lautaro Giannetti move is. And now it's done. And now you have to figure out what's next. And you move on.
Yeah, Mr. Fantastic was in early this morning and asked if it was still possible for the club to sign him. And will it be a major setback if they decide to move on?
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, the player's representation has already said he's going back to Buenos Aires. Like, sure, you could sign him, but he's at the point now where he's weighing having surgery to be out for a period of time to fix this. So that would not be probably a good signing because you're looking for somebody to play now. Yeah. So, I mean, could you reassess it down the road? Sure, it's possible. But no, that's not where things stand now. When these moves happen, and what we would have talked about yesterday because of where things were yesterday was, yes, you do see teams move forward with signings in these situations. They normally try to get a reduced rate. They normally try to build in protection for the risk that they are taking on because once you identify something in the medical, there's a risk. But it can happen. As we mentioned, Drew Brees. I mean, it was a risk to the point Miami said no, and New Orleans said, sure, we'll do it. Well, it paid off. It paid off for them. But you never know because once you see that risk, you know that, all right, if he's got a damaged knee that could go at any time, then we could be without him for a year and he might not be the same player after that year. Those are the realities of it. It's not an exact science, but it is risk. And now he's got to weigh the risk for his own career. And yeah, it probably would make sense if it's to this point. It'd probably make sense for him to go ahead and do what he needs to do. And Velez was going to part with him anyway. It's smart for them to say, you know what, let's go ahead and get this done. Let's get you whole and then come back and play. And maybe we find another deal for you in a year or two. But it makes sense for him to get this fixed now. He wouldn't have known. Again, you can't see what's going on inside your knee until you get that scan, that work done. And you don't get that work done on a regular basis because, you know, we don't go and say, oh, my shoulder's a little sore. Let me see if my rotator cuff is torn. No, we don't do that. You play, you go through with it. So it's horrible luck for him. This was a big move for Lautaro Giannetti. It's horrible luck for Atlanta United, but you have to figure out what's next. And you do have to turn to the next name on the list if you're going to move forward, or now you've had a few days on the training pitch, or you decide, you know what, we're going to wait till the summer window, and we're going to roll with what we have internally for now. Remember, Sosa can play as a center back. Does that mean maybe he plays more center back in the first half of the year? Could be. Ibarra can play as that 6. Okay, that's a possibility. Anton Walks is right there. He was very solid last year. Is he going to be able to fill the bill? And then you get to the summer window with more information about exactly what you need. Maybe you can do that. Remember, the season's starting so much later. That summer window is much earlier in the season than you're accustomed to. It might be worth waiting, but there's no way to know that without knowing what other players they've talked about and where those clubs are situated. There are clubs in Argentina who would sell today because they need the money today, even if it hurt their team in the short term. There are also probably short-term options to get to the summer and figure that out. But now is where you have to sort through those things because you had planned on one, didn't happen. You made a great plan on number 2, and you had bad luck with a knee injury that you couldn't have known the extent of it until you get him in and take a look.
Tafka says, wonder if the search moves to Europe for a down-the-depth chart kind of a guy on the loan than a transfer since that worked for Joseph.
It's possible, yeah. I don't think working for Joseph has anything to do with it, but it's possible due to connections that different people in the club might have, that there could be somebody that, yeah, it's more of a, you know what, let's bring him in because he understands this way of playing and he could be somebody that fits that gap. Now, Thomas Jawin brings up an interesting one on the Twitch pitch, the other center back at Velez, and this would be even harder now because if Giannetti's going to have surgery and be out, then you'd be out with your 2 starting center backs from last season. But Luis Abram, the Peruvian national team center back, he is out of contract soon, and they've been having contract renegotiation issues. Now, he would be more expensive, but would they be willing to part with him? I think if Giannetti's out for a period of time, they would not. Maybe they need the money that badly. I don't know that. I don't think they're in as bad a financial shape as some other clubs. He is left-footed. Ding, ding, ding for everybody. Thank you, Matt. Everybody gets excited about left-footed center backs, but I don't know if Velez would be down both starting center backs from where they usually are. That's even more difficult. So I don't know. I think that's less likely. think it's probably more likely you're looking at another club and you're looking at other people, or you're looking at a younger center back at Velez who, I'd say might have known through the academy work, who is unproven, but could come in and give you a little bit of extra depth and extra push. Because, at a minimum, you might need another center back just for the extra depth on the list. I think it's going to be hard to get somebody at Giannetti's level, but could you get somebody who could give that extra depth while you're developing Campbell and Morales, and while you're playing Walks or Sosa next to Miles Robinson? But this also shows you why Atlanta United was reluctant to send Miles Robinson to Olympic qualifying. It's just a flat-out thing. Matt Wagner asked, as we're talking about Atlanta United, and we'll get into other MLS teams too. I know not everybody here is an Atlanta United person. We're based in Atlanta. We're going to talk a lot about Atlanta United, so I think everybody knows that by now. But we're going to talk around the league. We're going to talk around the world as well. Matt asks about Doug's article at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution about passing with the center backs. It is not purely about passing to create goals. We've got to eliminate that idea here, folks. Center backs in this way of playing are completing passes 60, 70, 80 per game. Center backs creating assists, you're talking like 3 to 8 per season. 8 would be extremely high per season versus 60, 70, 80 passes per game. What are the bulk of the passes? Not to create goals. That's not a center back's job. Let's understand the differences here. What you're asking your center backs to do is beat the first line of pressure and make the proper decisions under that. Because, you want the other team to press you because it creates space behind. So you're asking your center backs to make the decision, do I split the two players who are pressing first to play to my midfield? Do I play it out wide to get out down the flanks? Do I play it long diagonal? Do I play it long down my line? That's what you're asking your center backs to do in a passing sense. It's not about creating opportunities on a regular basis. Those will happen. Sometimes those passes that create goals have nothing to do with normal passing from the center back at all. None. Sometimes that's like a set piece where it's a flicked-on header or something. But in general, you're asking your center backs to pass a lot more short and make decisions as opposed to creating goals. You weren't looking at Giannetti to come in and create goals. You're not looking at a center back to come in and create goals. You're looking at a center back to come in and keep possession and progress the ball into better situations. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, and that was my idea where with the center back, it's to do one of those 4 things that you were talking about. It's not to be actively engaged and be right there outside the area to create that one pass so the ball ends up in the back of the net. It was to get it to that next decision in the next line going forward, whether it's straight up forward, diagonal, off to the edge, or over the top. So it was more to go to that next level as opposed to sit there and create an opportunity that's going to get a goal for you.
Yeah, it's about possession. You're not going to find center backs in the world who are playmakers. It's not their job. So let's leave that out. I mean, Leandro Gonzalez Perez, and I know we're trying to get some narratives going. I understand how this goes. Leandro Gonzalez Perez is probably not going to be traded from Inter Miami because we've talked about their depth at center back. Why would they do that? And he's not the same player he was in 2018 when he was here. 2019 was a dip in form for him. 2020 was a bigger dip in form. He's with a lesser team too, and that absolutely has a factor in it. But you need pace as well. You want to talk about what you're looking for at center back? You're looking for pace, and you're looking for game recognition of situations a whole lot more than you're looking for long passing. Because you're going to play an extremely high line. You're going to play a higher line than we have typically seen in Atlanta. Let's talk about Bayern Munich this year, for example. Hansi Flick has made it clear he is not going to get away from what his team does, knowing that invites risk. And we've seen them burned many, many times. We have seen them burned by playing a high line. They're not going to change. That is what Gabriel Heinze will have in mind. That's what he's done. That's what he has said in his career. He wants to play in the other team's half. He wants the ball. He's going to condense the field when they don't have the ball to get it back quickly. So you can't get somebody who you have a pace concern with, even with somebody like Miles Robinson next to them. You need players who understand those situations. I think the center backs you had in 2019 and the way the games played out is a big reason why Frank de Boer dropped that line deeper and didn't have the team press as high. Because when they did at the very beginning of the season, look at some of the goals they gave up. So he adjusted and dropped. I don't think Gabriel Heinze will adjust. He will get more aggressive with it. And does that open up an opportunity for somebody like a George Campbell, who's young and unproven, but we know he can cover that ground? Feels like he covers 10 yards with a stride. Yeah, it does. Because he provides the things that you're looking for in a center back. So that's where it stands. You're going to need to go find somebody, I think, even if it is for a depth position rather than a starting position. You've had a few days now to see Anton Walks in person. You've had a few days to see George Campbell in person, Efrain Morales in person, Santiago Sosa in person, and now you can work him into a center back rotation if you need to do that for a short period of time. Player positions are not going to be rigid. If Sosa plays some center back early on and moves into the holding midfield later in the season, that's what you do. That's how these things go. Players have to be able to adapt. So this is where it stands. We'll see what happens with the front office, and we'll see what happens with the player acquisition side of things. But that's where it stands right now. Anything else on Twitter in that regard, John?
Not on Twitter in that regard, no, sir.
Okay, we'll take some more questions on that as we go. I want to touch on some of the other things both in Atlanta and around MLS this morning. Rocco Rios Novo is another one we haven't had a chance to talk about since we missed yesterday. He is on loan with Atlanta United 2. A little bit of a surprise. I think people were expecting maybe he'd be on loan with the first team, but play with the second team. He is on loan with Atlanta United 2, and he's an Argentine youth international. He was born in Los Angeles. Promising player. There hasn't been an opportunity for him to play at Lanús. Young goalkeepers, it takes time for them to break in. So from their perspective, it makes sense to loan him. There's also a purchase option, according to the reports that have been out there. That's a manageable number. And he wouldn't count as an international player in Major League Soccer, so that's a nice thing to have. You get time with him now. He's probably going to play most of the games for the twos. I do wonder what the third goalkeeper situation will be with the first team. We'll have to see where that goes. But Rocco Rios Novo, it's done. He's going to be with Atlanta United 2 this season. He could play for the first team in an Open Cup match. He can in preseason as well. But Open Cup, you can do the short-term call-ups. He could for CONCACAF as well, but that's a little less likely. I mean, if you saw a situation where if they go into the Open Cup and in the first round they're playing USL League One or an amateur team, sure, they could bring him up to play in that game. I think you might see more stuff like that. But he'll be with the twos this season. So there could be a lot of eyes on Atlanta United 2 this season. Hi, we call the games. It'll be fun. We're also going to have more two-specific coverage for you this year. We don't do a post-game show on the broadcast on ESPN+, but where we are on site for games at Fifth Third Bank Stadium, what do you call those things, John? Because you like to have a little catchphrase with it.
Well, get a little action at the fraction, you mean?
Yeah, that. I guess there'll be a little bonus action with a little post-game that we'll have on our SDH platforms after games. So hopefully you can join us for those, and we'll figure out what that looks like for games that are on the road. A lot of it's down to scheduling and if the first team's playing and what things look like. But we'll have more talk on the twos because I think you'll see more integration between the two and also with the academy developing more players. It's a very important part of the club that we're going to talk about a little bit more in detail here on the SDH land of things. Preseason is out. We know the schedule. 3 games behind closed doors, 1 with limited attendance in Birmingham. Birmingham Legion is March 28th. That's the last game before the CONCACAF Champions League gets started. The closed-door games are all going to be at the training facility, the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground. It starts March 13th against Tormenta, USL League One, Charleston Battery of the USL Championship on March 20th, and Chattanooga FC of NISA NISA Division 3, March 24th. don't know the plans as of yet in terms of stream, broadcast, etc. And the Birmingham one, I have no idea just yet. But I know there's talk about figuring out what these will look like. There is a chance, Jason Nix, that those games will be streamed. Don't know the details and don't know if they'll be streamed live or in full. There might be more of like a package show. We're kind of figuring this out because if you remember the league, and I think it's down to broadcast deals, and I don't know all the details because that's about 20 pay grades ahead of me. There was geo-blocking on preseason games for all over the league. This isn't an Atlanta thing. This was all over the league. And to try to figure out how to make more of this coverage available to more people, it might be like a tape delay situation, and it might be almost like a match of the day kind of situation where it's like the 2-day NA like match in 60s kind of things where you're able to condense, but we might be able to then go into some detail on certain segments and show more detail on things. So stay tuned. We're trying to figure that out and trying to figure out what that looks like. Burned, I don't know why they don't play Nashville in preseason. That was one that I had on my list that I thought might happen. I think Nashville's traveling a little bit for preseason, so I don't know if just things didn't line up and where it stood. I do get the sense that Gabriel Heinze wants to stay home and work. I think this is what he did when he took over at Vélez. He created a training camp essentially because it was in their summer break, and they went and they put in work. They were doing 2-a-days. I want to say with Vélez, they might have been doing 3-a-days. I think that's what he's doing here, and I think a lot of it is just drilling down into those principles of play, just drilling down into how he wants this team to play and what he wants them to do. They're actually talking about Giannetti right now on TIC, on Sportia, and the possibility that he's going to come back to Buenos Aires and how he might have to have a surgery because of this issue that they've now identified. So keep you posted if we hear anything else about that. Around the league, move that caught me a little by surprise, but with the Columbus Crew adding Perry Kitchen in their holding midfield, they had an extra holding midfielder, and they send Sebastian Berhalter, 19 years old, son of Greg Berhalter, the U.S. men's national team manager. Columbus is sending him on loan to Austin FC. Also makes sense because Josh Wolf was at Columbus for a long period of time with Greg Berhalter, so he's going to know Sebastian very, very well. And also probably Columbus was very comfortable doing this deal with somebody that they know because there is an option to do it on a permanent basis. But at a minimum, Columbus knows that he's going into a situation with a manager who is going to develop the player well, they feel like. So he's going there, $50,000 in GAM for the loan deal. MLS has these intra-league loans for younger players, and Sebastian Berhalter will be bolstering the squad in Austin this season.
Do you think we'll see more of these where you have these loans with an option to buy within the league, especially with younger players like we're seeing here in the Berhalter situation?
You should, because the academies are producing more players. And as we've seen, like, you produce a bunch of young players, but the first-team managers have to win games or they lose their jobs. So it's not always easy to lean on those guys. And you might have 3 central midfielders that you've developed that are ready to go with nowhere for them to play, and you loan them to somebody who could use them for extra depth. Or, as we see in lots of industries, it's funny that I go to pro wrestling with this idea, but you see the young, up-and-coming Japanese pro wrestlers very often go and do, and they almost like refer to it like it's like a master class of some sort, or like they're getting their master's degree, where they're loaned essentially to other promotions around the world to go work and learn more and be exposed to something different, new training, new people, new way of thinking. That's another part of this. And for a player in MLS who, let's say somebody like Dallas, who produces a lot of talent, there might not be a spot for Dallas for them to play. It might be too far. They might be too far along to play with North Texas. But if Vancouver has a need for the player in that position, well, loan him. It makes sense. It makes sense. So I think you'll see more of that because the level of talent being developed inside the league is much better now. So there's more players who are able to help these teams. It wouldn't just be a young player with nowhere to play for Team 1 going to Team 2 where there's nowhere for them to play then. That wouldn't make any sense. You've got to have an opportunity to get time, and we'll see what happens.
Oh, real quick note, going back on the schedule real quick for Atlanta United, the match in Birmingham is slated to have a limited number of fans, but right now the Legion are looking at it first for their season ticket holders.
Of course.
And if there's an interest for Atlanta folks to possibly get in the door, to be notified on those kinds of things, you can go through the Atlanta United website or go to the BHM Legion website, get on a mailing list, and they'll keep you updated if that opportunity presents itself for the game on the 28th.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that things could be a little bit different with all this situation with the pandemic and attendances and all that by the time we get, 3 weeks down the line, 3.5 weeks down the line. But yeah, things could look a little bit different. So if you want to get on that list, get on it if you're interested in heading over for that. Okay, other stuff around the league. We've got rumors. DC, Lucas Rodriguez, was linked to Atlanta at one point, was with the Estudiantes, went to DC, did all right, then went back to Estudiantes, and now he might be going back to DC, I guess. Sure. Stephen Goff at the Washington Post has this update. It's not really sure if it would be a loan or a permanent deal. He was there in 2019 on a season-long loan. DC couldn't get a deal done to bring him back in 20 on a permanent or another loan. He went back to Estudiantes. Estudiantes has some competition at the winger spot because of a player Atlanta does know well, Manuel Castro, who played on the weekend. And Lucas Rodriguez is a little bit of the odd man out or not getting quite as much time. So maybe he goes back to DC and the revolving door of wingers at Estudiantes continues. We'll see if DC can get that one done. They just need more players. They have a very small roster as we speak, and a lot of it is unproven. We'll see what Hernan Losada is going to have to work with in his first year. New England, Bruce Arena spoke to the media this week, and he said they're pretty much done with where they stand, but they're not fully done. They might add a couple more people, but they've got some flexibility. Arena was really positive on maybe the biggest name that they brought in, and it's not a huge name, but Wilfred Kaptum. He's got La Masia experience coming out of Barcelona. He said he's obviously very technical. He said, but like any new player coming into the league, there'll be an adjustment. They liked his first day of training. They like how he moves, good passer. They want to see how he adjusts to the style of play in MLS. Outside of that, New England is a team for me that is going to develop further this season and has Carlos Heel. Carlos Heel, I know people who watch the game in England will remember Carlos Heel. Very, very talented player. He is everything to the New England Revolution, in my opinion. If he is healthy and fully fit, they are a difficult out. If he is not, they're not a playoff team. Carlos Heel will carry that team as far as he can, and they need to put everything in place to give him as much to work with.
They are an incredibly exciting side with him, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the Revolution do with another year under Bruce Arena's tutelage with the guys that he's brought in. I know that they're waiting on Adam Buxa. I think there's some paperwork that has to be figured out for Buxa to come back and be on this side of the Atlantic so he can get underway. But I'm looking forward to a New England Revolution. I've got them as a part of that discussion north of the playoff bar this year, and I want to see how having Carlos Heel 100% of the time will play out there. Yeah,
I think Heel's been one of the best additions in the league. He doesn't get a ton of credit because New England's not one of the sexy teams in MLS, and maybe he flies under the radar a little bit. He also had an injury as well, but talent, incredibly talented player. I mean, he's been at Valencia, he's been at Aston Villa, he's been at Deportivo La Coruña. It's a good addition, and at 28, he's still got plenty to give. I do want to see how they use him. I think Bruce Arena has been pretty interesting to watch in that when he took over that team, he kind of moved Heel from a central old-school number 10 position out wide, but with the freedom to come in. And with the outside backs that New England has, who get forward and cover that ground. And on that right side is where Heel's normally been. You're talking about Brandon Bye, who's a converted forward. Tajon Buchanan has played that as well when Bye was injured. The other side, you got DeJuan Jones, who bombs forward. So you can do that whole idea of having 3 then more solid central midfielders, or even dropping Gustavo Bo in and playing as a 10, which I didn't like quite as much, but you've got to find a way, if you're Bruce Arena, to get Bo and Adam Buxa on the field at the same time. It's going to be fascinating, because when you get away from 2 forwards, you've got to drop Bo into that role if you're going to play Bo and Buxa, unless you're going to play Heel in the 10. Like, the moving parts for New England, I want to see what they do, and I want to see how Captum fits in. Because if you get to a situation with the Revs, with Heel, with Gustavo Bo, and with another super technical Barcelona-esque kind of player in Wilfred Captum, New England starts to look really different. With 3 guys in that attacking central area who can all play, who can all create. I mean, Bo can finish better than the other 2, but he can create as well. All guys who are good in tight spaces. You can kind of build the protection around that. You could have Buxa up top, who is your true number 9. Maybe you don't really play with wingers and your outside backs become that. Maybe you try to find a way to play more 3-4-3 because of that, or 3-4-2-1 because of that. It's going to be fascinating. And Bruce Arena, look, people are always going to criticize Bruce Arena for what he did in Trinidad, and he got the tactics wrong, 100%. Bruce Arena's tactics in Trinidad cost the U.S. going to the World Cup in 2018. No way around it. But he's a better tactician than he gets credit for. And I'll see the Trinidad game plan, and I'll raise it with what he did in 2002 against Mexico in the World Cup, where he went 3-5-2 out of nowhere and shocked Mexico to the point they had to make a first-half sub to try to figure out how to play against it. Claudio Reyna as a right wing back was not expected. Arena does some very creative, subtle things in the way he moves his players around. And you give him one more player who can play in Captum, and you have Heel, and you have Bo, and you have a big number 9 at Buxa, and you've got these guys who can run all day, and Bye, and Buchanan, and Jones. And you've added A.J. De La Garza to a back line. Let's get Andrew Farrell, who's just solid. Henry Kessler, who's up and coming. You're pretty good. You're pretty good. And New England could be a bit of a surprise, because people don't rate Heel in the same way as they do Vela or Zelarayan in this league. Heel's pretty close. If Captum can give you the ability for him and for Gustavo Bo, as one of the most explosive players in the league, to have one more guy to combine with, one more guy to play with, New England could be a handful.
Why do you think the Revs don't get the attention that everybody else does, say, in the East? Is it because they're from Boston but don't play in Boston? Is it because of the lack of exposure? Why do you think the Revs are, I'm not going to say off to the side, but they don't get the same amount of attention as a lot of the other teams that could be very good in the East?
Some of it is the exposure locally, although that's starting to change. Some of it's just the long-term perception that Robert Kraft doesn't invest in the team, which has been false for about the last 5 years. About 5 years. Some of it is down to an anti-Bruce Arena sentiment. Some of it's down to, the players that they have. Their key guys are not – it's not Carlos Vela. I mean, it's not guys coming from Mexico, which is going to get more attention like Zelarayan. It's not the big U.S. men's national team players. It's guys that aren't as well known. I mean, Heel wasn't a superstar when he came in. Gustavo Bo wasn't a superstar when he came in. Captum's not a superstar. The guys like Bye and Jones and Buchanan are coming out of the college game, which people will look down on. It's not a team that has been sexy. It's not. And at the point now, like, they play some of the better soccer in the league. They've got to stay healthy, as everybody does. Arena's got to figure out how to get the best of the pieces he has. But this has the potential to be a top team in the East, in my opinion. I don't think they're as deep as Columbus. I don't think they're as good at the top end as what Atlanta can be. But I think they're right there. And I want to see how it looks. Captum is the one who can take them up a notch to me, if he is what he could be based off his CV. That's what we'll have to wait and see. Katie Weaver says, is there traction for them getting out of Gillette Stadium anytime soon? I don't know if there's more traction, but they have been mentioned as trying to do that. And it's hard to build a stadium in Boston proper. Getting the land to do it in Boston proper is very difficult. They have mentioned it. I think the Kraft family now sees the benefits of investing more in their team and investing more in this league. They've put in the work from day one. Robert Kraft was talked into being part of the World Cup bid ahead of 1994. He jumped on board with it. He was immediately one of the first in line with Major League Soccer, and he's been there, no problems. Maybe he didn't invest as much as you would have liked at different points, but that's changed over the years now because I think he sees what the return is. Alex Pacine says, Kraft has definitely doubled down on the club. I wonder if Blank has had any influence on that, just from seeing the success, not being told to invest or anything. Yeah, I'd assume it did. I mean, they're going to have those conversations at different points. I think Kraft has seen what's happened in Seattle first, then Atlanta. I think it's why you went out and got a Bruce Arena. They went from Steve Nicol, who was there locally and did a great job in those days of MLS. They turned it over to Jay Heaps, who was a legendary player there, and Heaps did okay for a while, and then it fizzled out. Then you went to Brad Friedel, which was kind of a wild card move, and it didn't work at all. It just didn't. And you went and you got somebody who you knew could win in this league in Bruce Arena. Again, say what you want about Bruce and like him or don't like him, but the guy's the most successful U.S. club soccer manager there's ever been. And it's not even really close at the moment. There will be others who will pass him at some point, but he's still really, really good in this league. He gets the most out of what he has. And now he's getting more to work with in New England. I think, again, because of that investment. So I'm excited to see a team like New England say, you know what? We don't have to go drop $20 million on guys to start to be better. Let's build with these. A guy like Gustavo Bo is valued at like $6 million. A guy like Carlos Gil is valued at $4 million. Let's go get those guys. Let's take it to the next level. Brooks is valued at $5 million according to Transfermarkt. Let's go up a notch. Let's continue to develop the college guys, the maybe lesser known guys, and turn them into something. But then when we get to that point, maybe it's when they get a new stadium. Maybe it's just when they become a true contender and start to draw people back to Gillette. Because that's a good soccer stadium when it's full. It really is. It's a good soccer stadium when the lower level's full. It's a good soccer stadium with 30,000. It sounds great. Maybe it's just when you get to that point again, then it's, okay, let's go get a $10 or $15 million player. See what happens. I think they're heading in that direction. They just invested huge into a training facility. It's really starting to ramp up.
Yeah, you mentioned the training facility. They've got the League One franchise that was a part of things in its first year last year as well to continue that development. So you're seeing all of these different pieces being put together by Robert Kraft with his investment over the last handful of years where the Revs are concerned.
All right, we're going to go next to the LA Galaxy. And Rodrigo Serrano, who writes for AS, he's based in this country, covers a lot of MLS stuff for AS, covers a lot of Liga MX stuff for AS in Spain. He wrote a piece about kind of where things are with Chicharito, with what the Galaxy are going to be under Greg Vanney. Vanney said on the call-up with our good friend Jillian Sakovits and Susanna Collins that he's been in a situation before. Josie is a different player than Chicharito, but you know how to build a team to get the most out of that guy. They're similar in the sense that they're not going to dribble past 3-4 players and beat them and then score these goals from 25 yards. And that's not who Chicharito is. It's not who Josie was. Josie scored a lot of goals for Greg Vanney. He knows how to get the best out of that kind of number 9. Okay, so that's what Chicharito's here for. It was horrible for Chicharito last year. He had injuries. Of course, there's a pandemic that makes it all a little more complicated as well. 2 goals in 12 appearances, 758 minutes. That's an awful return on the investment that the Galaxy put in. He said there's a lot of blame that he had to take on for the bad results. And he said in 2021 that he's going to demonstrate why he signed there and why they should have put that investment in him. He's going to have to get help, though, because anybody who's followed Chicharito's career, whether it's Mexico, whether it's Real Madrid, Manchester United, and Germany, it's service. It's providing him with opportunities. It's feeding him. He's got to finish, of course, but you got to feed him, and you got to have the right people to feed him. I think Greg Vanney is the right manager to get the best out of Chicharito going into the season, but they've got to continue to upgrade this roster because that's been the Galaxy's biggest problem over the last couple of years. You can point at different things. You can point at Siggy Schmid. You can point at Dominic Kinnear as an assistant when he's been there. You can point at Guillermo Barros Escaloto. I think you have to start pointing at the roster build because it's not good enough. It's just not. And they've got to upgrade that. They've got to get the right wingers to feed a guy like Chicharito. They have to. They don't have him yet. Christian Pavón, even if they get him back, which I think is still in limbo or up in the air somewhere and you're trying to grab it, he just had ankle surgery, so he's not going to be ready to start the season. So what do you do? I mean, I really don't know what this lineup looks like at the moment for Greg Vanney because I don't know what the wide play looks like. I mean, are you going to have to go into a 3-5-2 kind of setup or a 3-4-2-1 kind of setup because of just what you have to deal with to free up a Julian Araujo or O'Neal Fisher or Jorge Villafaña or Danilo Acosta to get forward and be able to provide that service? I don't know. But Chicharito will not be successful unless he's getting the right kind of service from wide. And right now, you don't have the players to do that if you're the LA Galaxy.
And by Chicharito's own admission, you said that he takes takes the responsibility for what happened last year. He's invested in a full-time nutritionist now. He's invested in, I guess the best way that I can describe it is like a life coach,
okay,
almost like a sports psychologist kind of a thing,
okay,
to help keep his mind in the right places coming into this season. And I know that his family was separated and he wasn't there to be able to be with his family full time as well. And so there were a lot of things in the last year, but he's making those investments in himself coming into the 2021 season. My question for you about the Galaxy is this the year for Dennis Teclosa? Like, if it doesn't happen, is he gone, do you think, after this season because of the player build or lack thereof?
Possibly, and I think Chris Klein is in that conversation as well because you get Greg Vanney and you want to rebuild here, and you need to. I mean, it's going to take you more than just this season, but you've got to show progress this year. I mean, if this year's like last year for the Galaxy, yes, the front office is going to need some changes. If there's progress, okay, then maybe it was more on Schelotto. Maybe it was this. Maybe it was that. Maybe it's just the way that the roster balanced out. You need to go do some different things. You needed time, whatever. There's got to be progress this year. Couch Sports Football has joined us. What's up? Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. And said, being a United fan, I used to love watching Chicharito, but you need to give him something to get on the end of. He's not one who can do it on his own. It's been the case everywhere he's been. And he's the kind of guy that if you feed him, he's going to work hard. You know, I mean, he's a striker. You go through ups and downs. We know this. But the work is going to be there. Sometimes he will have problems finishing. He'll get into a funk. He won't convert chances. But you've got to keep feeding him because you know he's going to put in the work. He's going to put in the runs off the ball. you have to keep at it. And maybe those funks that would happen from time to time, maybe the life coach, maybe the better nutrition, all those little things that as you get older, can affect your game. Even just a little bit of an effect. And especially when you add that to a player who is accustomed to having great players around him, feeding him with crosses, to not getting that. Then you start to get down, and you start to feel more pressure, like, okay, I'm only going to get 2 good looks this season in this game instead of 6. Now I've got to convert on one of those 2, and you start to press. Maybe this gets a little bit better with him. Burns says Chicharito is a good example of a player who comes to MLS and thinks it'll be easy. Rarely works because it's not. I don't know if he did. I don't know if he thought it'd be easy. I think maybe he thought he'd have more to work with around him. I didn't think – sometimes when we say that, I guess my brain goes to, okay, players who then don't work hard because of that. Blaise Matuidi in the postseason, the horrible effort in the Nashville game that comes to mind with that. I don't think that was the issue with Chicharito. I think it was a variety of things. Let's see how he does this year. But let's first see what the Galaxy does to feed the guy, because he's got to get more opportunities than he's had. This comes up, and it's come up with Lynn Williams on the women's side. This idea that Couch Sports Football mentions in the Twitch timeline of, you have some strikers that look, you might need to give them a few extra chances. Okay, their conversion rate isn't the best. But if you give them those chances, they're going to score goals. Lynn Williams, it's like, she needs 7-8 chances a game. Well, she's creating 2 or 3 of them herself, so that's fine. Are you scoring goals? Are you creating those chances? Okay, cool. I don't care. I don't care. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. Because you get guys who aren't going to convert with that many chances. So I think that's a little bit of just a story that gets played with certain forwards who don't always score efficiently. If the chances are being created, and that's the number one thing for any team, and the goals are coming in, maybe not 5 a game, but maybe 2 a game, I'll take it. I'm not going to complain too much about it. Chicharito is going to be one of the big stories this season, just because of the expectation, because of last season, because of what it looks like. And he's going to be one of the big talking points all year long in this league. And he should be. That's why you bring him in. He's a player that, if he'd went to another club in England or in Spain or in Germany, or if he'd went to Portugal or Italy, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. Coming to MLS because of the connections with Mexico, because of his profile in this country, it's a massive deal. And that's why it was worth it to go get him. But now you've got to get the best out of him, and he's got to get the best out of himself.
And for me, once again, it just goes down to those surrounding pieces. Now, all of the stuff that Chicharito is doing to invest in himself coming into the season is great, but I want to see how the Galaxy front office surrounds him to help give him the ball so they can get more goals on the board and get more points than they did last year.
Yeah, and the Galaxy have to be better in general, and they're going to be compared to LAFC across town all day long, and that's been the hardest thing for them. Because we saw the Red Bulls change their approach when New York City came to town. Good or bad, and there's definitely arguments to be made for both, but they went in a completely different direction. They stopped signing the Thierry Henrys and Rafa Marquez's and Tim Cahill's. They went to, let's develop from within, because they knew New York City was going to go sign those guys, and they did out of the gates. They went and they got your Frank Lampard and your Andrea Pirlo and David Villa. They went and got those guys. Well, now New York City's not really going to those guys as much anymore. And the Red Bulls need something to get some interest. So I'm curious to see where that story goes long term. But in LAFC came in and they went and got Carlos Vela. And they went and signed the young Uruguayans and Diego Rossi and Brian Rodriguez. And they went and signed Edward Atuesta from Colombia. And they got good moves from within. They got a big-time manager in the United States in Bob Bradley. LA Galaxy from that point on, and you can go back to the day that Bruce Arena left to go back to the national team. They have not been the same. They tried to paper over it with Zlatan, and he scored a boatload of goals and also created a boatload of problems in the locker room, it sounds like. And they got 1 playoff win out of it and 2 playoff games out of his 2 years. The LA Galaxy aren't looking for just somebody to come in and talk a lot and sell a bunch of shirts. They're looking to win trophies. That's their mantra. That's what they do. You go get Chicharito. You go bring in Schelotto. You make these moves to do that. They're not doing it. So what do? Because they're not developing talent from within. Really, now they have a few guys. But are they going to take that jump this year? Because that last generation of Galaxy players that came through really gave you nothing. They scrapped it. And now it's Efrain Alvarez, Julian Araujo. Are they going to take that next jump? And who are the LA Galaxy? I don't know what their identity is at this point. Greg Vanney will give them one on the pitch. He will give them a playing identity. But who are the LA Galaxy beyond that? They're not the best team in their city right now, when they were previously the team that everybody looked up to in the league. They got to look in the mirror at what they want to be. Now, I don't have the answers, really, at this point. It's not just Greg Vanney that's going to fix it. It's not just Chicharito. It's going to be a fun story to watch this season, though, because the pressure's on, I think, in LA on this massively. Any questions on MLS before we move on? And your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, not just real quick. Where did we have Vanney on the pressure meter this year?
Honestly, I don't think he was really on that list. I think he is out of the new guys.
Yeah.
Because of the team that he has around him, I'm not expecting them to win MLS Cup. I don't think they even necessarily have to be a deep run. He's towards the back of that group for me. The back of the front group of the bigger teams. I mean, you've got...
Like fourth?
Yeah, it's him and Neville are like in that around there for me. I mean, I think Atlanta has more expectation than the Galaxy this year. You go back and forth, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it. There's pressure to get the Galaxy further along. And check the Twitter, by the way, is what I'm being told on the Twitch pitch. I believe there's questions for you. Yes. Let's say, let me try to make sense of this. I think there is more pressure because of what the Galaxy have been for Vanney to come in and do well straight out of the gate. I think the realistic side of things is he needs more help to get there than Atlanta does in terms of like the quality of the two rosters. I think Atlanta's much better, much more complete than the LA Galaxy. So if you're looking at it from the outside, you might think Vanney, because of who the Galaxy have been over the last few years, was number 2, and I could see that. You could put him number 3 because realistically they're not going to be a challenger this year. Like, I don't think the Galaxy are a playoff team in the West as we currently sit.
Right.
That could change quickly, but I don't think that's the case right now. I do think Atlanta United's a playoff team, and I do think there will be internally in the Atlanta United nation and the fan base more expectation on Heinze than the LA Galaxy fans will have in Vanney. I think they're maybe giving him a little more time. But it's probably going to fluctuate, to be honest.
The one MLS question in the Twitters comes from Kevsey, wondering about a current free agent. Is there a club you think that should give Kai Kamara a call if they're looking for a veteran striker?
Yeah, there's got to be one. I mean, a very quick glance at who could use a striker like Kai Kamara, who's another one who needs service. Austin. Austin's number 1 for me because Danny Houston, maybe. And you might not need Kai Kamara to play every match. Could Houston be a possible landing spot? No, they're going to roll with Mateo Bahamic, the young Argentine. I think they're going to give him the opportunities. Not the two LA teams, unless you wanted to go get him to be that number 9, so Vela can stay out wide, Rossi can be on the other side. Corey Baird, then you went and got him, I'm assuming, to be the number 9, but maybe then he becomes a rotation guy. I don't know. With Baird there, I'd say no, but could he help that team? Yes. Minnesota just added Agudelo instead of Kamara, so that's not going back there. Montreal added Bjorn Johnson, so they're going to give him every opportunity. Nashville's good. New England's good. There's not a ton. That's what's tricky. I mean, at that age and what he brings to the table, like, is he going to be able to press like the Red Bulls would need? You've got Orlando's got it, Philly's got it, Portland's got it, Vancouver. He's already been there. I guess they could bring him back. RSL, maybe, possibly. There's not a lot of options here. I would go with Austin number 1, and I would go with Vancouver number 2, but I'm wondering if maybe they don't want to bring him back.
Yeah.
I don't remember if that really ended all that well. I don't think it did, if I remember correctly. So I'd go Austin and be a new team for him to play on because he's played for almost every other team in the league.
Yep. The Hoyt Wilhelm of MLS. That's your Google search for today, kids.
Oh,
thought on the twos is in the queue as well as the Premier League, but we're at the top of the hour.
Yes, which means, I guess you guys know what that means. Of course, there he's going to stretch because he has to stretch before he does a read, ladies and gentlemen.
He does.
Which makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, and I don't want you to do this, but I would think if you're about to run or you're about to lift something, you're going to be stretching things. If you're about to talk, you'd probably be doing vocal exercises, but then you'd forget to hit the mute button. No, you're not going to actually massage your throat. That's just gross. You would be doing vocal exercises like singers do or something.
Arpeggios and things like that.
Sure, but don't do that because you would forget to hit the mute button and it'd just be madness. So
yes, it would.
You're going to have to do this after stretching your arms out for some reason. And tell us about our good friend Steve Apolinsky in Decatur, GA.
Apolinsky and Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, there's only one law firm you need to get in touch with, and it's Apolinsky and Associates, LLC. How do you get in touch with said law firm? Well, we're going to let you know. Couple different, 3 actually is what we'll talk about here on the show. 1, you can pick up your phone, get a free consultation at 404-377-9191, or you can shoot Steve an email directly, STEVE, at aa-legal.com, or you can go on the World Wide Web, large device or small, in the address bar. Type aa-legal.com, aa-legal.com, hit the enter key, the return key, the arrow key, whatever advances you. And there's the home page for Apolinsky and Associates, LLC, with a wealth of information on the topics that he likes to discuss with you, wrongful death and serious injury matters. And if you still have questions from analyzing that wealth of info on the website, there's a pop-up window that pops up because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up 24/7, 365 and a quarter. Thank you, Chris Hutchison. You can get your questions answered there as well if your questions are not answered initially from looking at the homepage. Recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia, over 30 years of experience, over $40 million in judgments for their clients in 2 separate time zones, Eastern, for clients in Georgia and Alabama. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, there's one place you need to go. It is Apolinsky and Associates, LLC, and the website is aa-legal.com.
Wow, that was the longest one ever. And then you made
Seriously?
it longer with the thing at the end, which was strange.
Well, I thought I hit it right, but then it didn't sound right, and that's when I waited to the next
because
stanza.
you went super long, and I'm not going to accept dings on his score for his squirrel who's running his internet, taking a break and jumping off the The circle thing that he runs on to try to feed John's internet.
The hamster wheel?
The hamster wheel. It's a squirrel, so it's not a hamster wheel. That wouldn't even make sense.
So it's a squirrel wheel.
It's a treadmill. It's
treadmill.
It's bigger than that. A squirrel doesn't run on a treadmill or on a wheel. It runs on a treadmill. So anyway, we're not going to try to figure John's internet out. So you don't get dinged for that. I'm going to block that. Ragamuffin wanted to give you a -20 for it. No. Thomas DeWin, a +1 for catching couple and accurately saying 3. Yes.
Okay.
That's a step in the right direction. He's spelling .com now. That was probably a step in the wrong direction. Whoops, brain fart there. -2 for the single finger air typing. That's kind of weird.
I always type with my index finger.
Ragamuffin, your score is not accurate because of the squirrel. It's because of the squirrel. There's so much finger wagging. Lots of superfluous talking today. Pin wag, buffering. Not going to knock for the buffering. Not a confident landing. That's accurate. 4.2. Okay. Anyone old enough to remember the Micro Machines commercials? John needs to train by watching those. I can't remember that guy's name who talked super fast.
Oh, John. God. The FedEx guy.
Micro Machines guy.
Yeah, it's. I'll check it. I'll check it for a second. Keep going with grades.
3.14 and a whole bunch of numbers that I'm not going to read them all, Domer. That's a lot. I know what it is. We're not going to read all the numbers. You're muted, John.
I have to hit the button. John Machida is the guy.
Thank you.
John Machida is the voiceover guy.
Thank you. You're now a slave to the previous ad-libs, and you've lost the plot. 4.8. Got to freshen it up. -1 stretching for no scientific reasoning. -2 we know how to spell. -4 long, very long. A rough day at the HQ. 2.81259. Pi, Alex Basine says.
3.14159.
Yes, it's a whole bunch. Shut up. Yeah. Shut up. That pause was so pregnant, John had triplets. 4.3.
Where's your rim shot?
No, Steve doesn't get the rim shot on that one. Because I didn't like the pause at all. I was very upset by it.
I thought I hit it square, but I was wrong.
And the return thingy as a typewriter, oi, -3, .com, -3, long pause, really long, 4.0304. Kind of a brain fart, some hiccups, +1 for the Central Time Zone, 5.3 from Huntsville, Alabama, in said Central Time Zone. Let's see. I missed all of it except the .com, +3 for that. Got nothing else. 10 out of 10 because anything is better than being on hold with the phone company. Sorry, Tommy. I don't even know where to start. Just a 4. I give John a 10. Always a 10. Alex Basine is very generous.
Thank you. Taka apparently gives me the... what's a whiff translate into in numbers?
I think that would be a 0.0.
So he gave me a Blutarski?
Yes. 6.6, Shaky Mi Amigo. And you probably should give the Blutarski reference because it's older than a lot of people listening.
Grade point average reference by Dean Wormer to John Belushi's character in Animal House.
Which was released in like 1979, I think?
78, 79, yeah, I think
somewhere in that ballpark? Okay, just checking. Classic, but yes. Thank you, Thomas Jawin, for the Micro Machines guy reference. Very good. No Time to Hate, another 10 out of 10. I think some people are feeling very generous, and some people maybe are feeling a little bit of sympathy after an interesting performance. Maybe. And Couch Sports Football did not know that the Micro Machines were toys before the video game. That is accurate.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They were toys.
Mm-hmm.
And then they became a video game. I know some of us kind of remember these things. Not all of us. We try
some of us are a lot older than the mean average age on the show.
We try to bring everybody in. Sometimes we have to explain, and that's what we're here for. That's what we do. We have plenty of time. 7, no explanation from Soccer for Good OG.
Just cause?
Basically.
7 just
again,
cause.
I think your good scores were just cause, and then there were some other scores that were maybe a little more accurate. I'm just saying. Possibly, sort of, maybe. Okay. Hopefully we're going to have some new folks to have reads for. We have a couple of interesting ideas that we will see if they emerge. One that I'm very, very excited about if we can pull this off. So stay tuned, and we will hopefully have more of these things. Next week, in the evening, we will have a special evening show on Thursday for you, and it will be coming live from the Wild Heaven Brewery at the West End. Yes, the brewery tour that was supposed to be in 2020 is now in 2021, and it is starting to develop, and there will be plenty of opportunities for people to watch from home, especially in the early going of this. But there will also be opportunities to come out if you are comfortable, and if you are comfortable with the location, to come out and join us in a very socially distanced presentation and in a big space that allows for that social distancing, like Wild Heaven West End. Had a chance to catch up with Nick Purdy, and you'll be able to hear the whole conversation later today. But I wanted to share with you this clip to kind of tease what we're going to be doing next week. It'll be at 6 o'clock is when we'll go on air here on Twitch. There will be ways for you to participate watching on Twitch, as you always do, but there will be a giveaway as well with a Wild Heaven gift card, specifically for those of you who are watching from home. So stay tuned for the information there. I'll just say in the next week, when you're doing your grocery lists or you're planning your trips to breweries to grab beer, you might want to stop and grab some Wild Heaven. Domer, you settle down. I'm not saying anything about what you're saying just yet. But here is Nick Purdy from Wild Heaven to talk a little bit about next week and everything that they are up to.
So what we know is our 40 staff in nearly 11 months have gotten a grand total of 0 cases at Wild Heaven.
Right.
So we're really proud of that. I also think we're lucky, but we're proud of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of luck for anybody who's doing this, I think, at this point, but you limit the bad luck with proper protocols and with being thoughtful about all of this. And you guys have been doing that from day one. I think setting a standard for others to follow. It's essential, and it was essential for us as we were starting to figure out, we canceled a potential tour last year of going around doing these because we had to. And it's an opportunity, and Scott Flood and the Flood Project has been essential with creating this, bringing community together. And now we're trying to figure out how to bring community together when we can't completely be together, but we're starting to be able to be together. Starting the tour with you guys made the most sense because you've got this track record of safety and doing it the right way. And thank you for opening up for us for this next Thursday.
Well, I can't thank you enough for saying that. Hopefully we've done a good job.
You
Still
have.
learning.
Yeah, we all are, and that's the thing. I mean, we're going to do this event on Thursday where we're going to be out with a few folks, but also people are going to be able to watch on Twitch and participate on Twitch and hopefully be drinking a few Wild Heavens at home that they can have and be part of the show and ask questions and interact. We've got to find new ways to do these kind of things right now. We're getting creative. We'll do it. What are some of the things you're looking forward to in 2021 as we take what we've learned, and in some cases we've learned some things that are going to help us in 21 through all of this.
100%.
What are you looking forward to in spring and summer as we hopefully get back to something resembling normal?
Well, I was just, we're really involved with the Footy Mob supporters group. In fact, we're making a beer with Footy Mob for release
Very cool.
before the season. So we're excited about that. But I mean, I got to tell you, the fact that there are not yet any tailgate parties planned bums me out to no end. I mean, who among us knew that we would covet our days in the Gulch so much? But aside from live music, I think I miss being in the Gulch with Footy Mob as much as anything during COVID. I've had a chance to see a few people from Footy Mob a couple of times here and there. A bunch of us were at the kit reveal the other night, and that was kind of fun. And but boy, I just look forward to maybe when we get into the summertime and we're a third of the way into the season, maybe we get to where we can start having tailgates again.
And we're back. Thank you, Nick Purdy, for catching up with me earlier. Again, you'll be able to see the whole conversation here in a bit. He does talk a little bit more about that beer with Footy Mob. And if you like Atlanta references, you will enjoy that beer. I'm intrigued by it. And I'm not an IPA guy generally. but I will have to try this beer because it is a classic Footy Mob reference. It's a classic Atlanta reference. It's pretty sweet. I'm not going to spoil it. You're going to have to check that out. But yeah, we're looking forward to it next Thursday. We will have Soccer in the Streets with us as well. Sanjay Patel, who is a board member who's been spearheading the Station Soccer project. He's going to speak with us. There will be a fundraising component on site for Soccer in the Streets. A percentage will go to Soccer in the Streets for the evening, which is great. So, and we're going to do that with these brewery tour events. We're trying to partner up with local youth clubs, with local initiatives, and get a percentage of the sales from the evening to that group. Again, this is what we try to do. We try to spread the soccer love as best as we can. So we will be starting the events next Thursday. They will be socially distanced. We are working with people who are taking this stuff very seriously, and there will be ways to participate even if you can't come out on site. So it's 2021. We're trying to figure it out, right? We're doing the best we can with it. But yeah, we're getting back in that game a little bit.
It'll be good to see everybody Thursday to get the tour started. And looking at the schedule, I can't wait, frankly. At some point, I know that we're probably going to have to produce the tour T-shirt, much like every good rock and roll band does.
Well. You could go to our Teespring store and actually get a tour T-shirt right now. It is available. We will have some on site, hopefully a little bit later in the tour. But yes, we are building this thing out as we go. And Scott Flood and his group, the Flood Project, is putting so much into this. But we have a tour T-shirt available, and we will have them on site soon. We will also soon have scarves on site, our new 2021 scarf, to be very clear. And for those of you who are Patreon subscribers, those of you who are Twitch subscribers and active in our Discord, you have seen what said scarf looks like. Everybody else is about to see what it looks like, and then it will be available on our social media and such. I have to get the sizing right because, man, that's a really big graphic. So give me a second. It's a little bit bigger graphic than I thought it was. It's a normal size scarf. Trust me, I promise. Was really happy with our friends at Die Hard, and they do such a good job of getting this stuff out really super quickly for us as we come up with an idea and ping them with an idea, and they're like, okay, cool, we can do this, we can do that, we can make it work this way. They're awesome, and I highly recommend them to any of you who do scarves or merch for your shows, for your groups. If you have a team, a club, a business, they are the best, and they get stuff to you super fast. So our pre-sale is officially open for the new scarf, and here's what it looks like. That's our 2021 Soccer Down Here scarf. The story behind it, just a little bit. I mean, obviously the colors and the style plays off of 2021 here in Atlanta. But the quote, Atlanta is American soccer, comes from Vic Crow from the Atlanta Chiefs in 1968. Atlanta was American soccer in 1968. Atlanta was the focal point of American soccer at the very beginning of the professional era. Because, one, they won a championship in 1968, and it's so weird and so cool that year two of the Atlanta Chiefs, they won a championship. They were talked about all over the country in the soccer circles. Year two of Atlanta United, they won a championship. They were talked about all over the country in American soccer circles. 50 years later, like the synergy is so bonkers with all of this. But that quote, it's a little bit more than just they were a good team. That quote is also about the idea of the Atlanta Chiefs were the first professional soccer team in the United States to take development seriously and growing the game seriously. And not just in Atlanta. I mean, they did camps and clinics all over the Southeast. So many people, their first introduction to soccer in 1967 through 72, the years that the Chiefs existed, was because of all the work that the Chiefs did to plant those seeds. They did camps. They did clinics. They had kids to games. The players were super active. The first real organized youth soccer league in Atlanta, the teams were coached by players. And when the players couldn't coach the teams, their wives did. And it was a really cool story. It was based around an apartment complex in DeKalb County where most of the players lived. And that was where a lot of things got started. And a lot of people, as young kids, played in those leagues, went to these camps, went to these clinics. Then they went on to do the same thing. And they spread the word. And then the next group spread the word. And the next generation. And it's grown and grown and grown to what we have now. But all those seeds were planted with the Atlanta Chiefs. So that quote has always resonated with me because it was the case at that time. 100%. You wouldn't have had the North American Soccer League continue to last if the Chiefs hadn't given up a room in the basement of Atlanta Fulton County Stadium for the league office in 1969 and given up their player manager, and Phil Woosnam to run the league. And the Chiefs weren't able to continue on into the glory days, and they came back on the back end of the glory days with a second version of the Chiefs, and that's a whole nother story. But Atlanta planted so many seeds for soccer, not just in this area, but in the country. And yes, it was an accurate quote then, and I think it's an accurate quote now because of what Atlanta is doing in the soccer world with planting more seeds and also showing that it can be done a little differently, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that is why that quote is there. It is from 1968. I do think it is accurate today, and hopefully it will be accurate always. So that scarf is available. If you haven't seen the information on how to get it, first off, you can send us a message. We'll get you taken care of with everything there. They are $25. They have gone up just a little bit this year because our friends at Die Hard, their sourcing of everything has gone up just a little bit, probably pandemic related with everything we're all dealing with. So it's just slight. It's $25, and the shipping will be added on top of that. If you're going to come out to an event and pick it up, you don't have to pay for shipping. So we can figure that part out. So $25, $5 for shipping is what it will be. And you can pay via PayPal to our PayPal if you've ordered from us before. Nothing's changed. If you need that information, please send us a message, and we will get you taken care of. We get the pre-sale going. We get to the magic number. We will order them, and we should have them in place before the start of the MLS season. So thanks to everybody, one, who's been asking about our new scarf. And there you go. I'll give you one more look at it really quick. Boom.
Boom. Very, very cool. Great quote. And it's another rite of spring when it comes to the beginning of soccer season, the release of the scarf. You know, soccer season's coming up just around the corner when SDH's scarf is being shown.
Yes. And you can go on soccerdownhere.net, link to our Teespring store. A bunch of people are checking out some of the various knickknacks that are in there they might not have seen before. There is a fanny pack in there because I thought it was too funny not to have. It's a look. The SDH logo that we used for that is the NWO logo, and wrestling is known for fanny packs, which is a weird thing, but it's true. Wrestlers wear fanny packs a lot, so we had to do a fanny pack. It was just kind of there. I have not picked up the dog hoodie yet to see if it would be big enough for Gwen. I'm a little worried about that, but I'm going to need to grab one of those to see if that would look. She hates wearing stuff, so I don't even. Oh, yeah. It'd probably end up getting torn up and thrown in the trash. But
try to figure out a way to rub it in the dirt, or she takes.
No, she just tear it to shreds.
Do the Houdini thing in 35 seconds. She's out of it, and it's over in a corner somewhere.
She'd tear it to shreds, 100%. But we'll find out. I did not know fanny packs were big with men in Polynesia, Thomas Jewin, but again, that plays off the wrestling thing too, so I guess that does make sense. DK asked about Statesboro sweatshirts. We've done some different city editions on there. Go dig in if there's something you like. Cool. We did try to do stuff in different colors. If you are a Soccer Down Here listener in Statesboro or in Greenville or whatever, go grab one. If you want that, if you want the Atlanta stuff, If you just want the SDH stuff, grab the SDH stuff. There you go. If you have requests on merch, we'll see what we can do. Shoot us a message. Let us know. But we appreciate everybody who asks about it and wants to support the show in different ways, because that stuff allows us to do what we're doing. Go back to the top of the show real quick because it came back up in the Twitch pitch. The stuff on Giannetti. Just to give you an update on the conversation out of Argentina, because it's been a recurring segment on TIC this morning. there was a medical exam here on Lautaro Giannetti, because that's what you do. You sign a player, you bring them in for a medical. Remember Anthony Robinson in AC Milan last year? He gets to Milan, everybody's ready to go. They do the medical. Oops, we can't do this because of, what was it in his case?
Oh, I thought it was a knee, but I'll look
It might have been a knee. I think it was. But they didn't do the deal. So is that on Milan? Is Milan a bad team with bad people doing deals if you do a medical on a player? Because last time I checked, I can't see if your ACL's in good shape. I can't really see that just looking at that ACL. He's played games, absolutely, but you check and you're like, oh, wait.
Yeah, heart rhythm irregularity for
right.
which further testing could not be completed before the deadline,
right.
for which he would undergo an ablation procedure.
Thank you, Bernd. And he had to go undergo a procedure. So Milan wasn't going to do the deal because of the risk. That's where things stand here. And the risk is to the point that Lautaro Giannetti might be going back to have surgery in Buenos Aires and be out for a while with Vélez. It happens. It's part of business in the soccer world. It's part of business in the sports world. To say that it's a mistake on the front office side, look, again, you're trying to create a narrative, and it just doesn't make any sense. So I'm sorry. It's just people, you should know better in these situations, because if you follow the game, we've seen it happen so many different times in deals. We just saw it with Boca just like not even a month ago. We saw it last year in the U.S. front with Robinson. You don't know everything until you do the medical. So that's what happens, and that's what happened here. And it's horrible luck. It's horrible luck for the player. It's horrible luck for Vélez, because even though now the deal isn't going to happen, he might have to have surgery so he doesn't play anyway for Vélez. It's horrible luck for Atlanta United, because you couldn't know that there was this kind of problem until you did the exam. And it's not about Atlanta should have done the exam before. You can't. You can't do an exam on somebody else's player. Things have to get to the certain point to where, okay, the deal is done contingent on the exam, done by the team that's paying the money. If I'm paying the money, am I going to have the medical exam done by the team that's trying to take my money? No. That's not how it works. And you don't get to do the medical exam before. We know how this stuff goes. Let's not create false narratives. Let's not create stories to get buzz and hype. Come on. This happens to every team in the world because it's just the nature of the business. Anyway, so you smash a soapbox. It happens. Let's not try to find something to yell about. Okay. One team that was yelling yesterday was Barcelona. If our friend Fourcard is hanging out with us, I know he was yelling in our watch-along on Discord that's there for our subscribers, because Barcelona pulled off something pretty magical. Coming back, they were down 2-0 going into the second leg of the Copa del Rey. They scored a goal. They were trying to find a second to send it to extra time. Gerard Piqué, deep in extra time, scores the goal. Everybody goes nuts. This is after Lucas Ocampos had a penalty that could have sealed it for Sevilla. Piqué scores the goal to tie it. Martin Braithwaite scores the decisive goal, great header in the extra time. And Barcelona somehow gets by Sevilla. They will play either Athletic Bilbao or Levante. They're 1-1 after the first leg in Bilbao. That second leg is today. You can watch on, I believe, ESPN Deportes, but definitely ESPN+. Good news for Barcelona. They needed this. And if you haven't seen the isolated videos of Lionel Messi going nuts, and you wonder, is he really cares? Is he really excited? Is he leaving? Is he walking out the door? He was pretty pumped. Even Ronald Koeman was actually pretty pumped, and he doesn't get pretty pumped on the sideline very often. He was here. It was a pretty big day for Barcelona, and they need it because you got a lot of other things happening with Bartomeu out on bail. You've got a presidential election coming up this weekend, but big day for Barca.
Since you mentioned the election, and I know that we'll probably talk about it more as the week goes along, but what's your gut tell you about the election this weekend?
Joan Laporta wins it because he's the name that everybody knows. Flat out, he is. Tony Freixa feels like he's trying to find the alternative approach. He said over the weekend, or early in the week, that Xavi, if he comes into Barcelona, he's got to coach the B team first before he can coach the first team. That's trying to be opposite from Victor Font, who said that Xavi would come in and be his almost like right-hand man on the soccer side straight away. Laporta's spoken highly of Xavi. Like, Fresh is trying to find the alternative. And it's like, oh, well, Pep Guardiola had to go through the B team, and then he came up with the first team. Xavi would have to go to the B team. Xavi's coaching at Al-Sadd. Xavi's doing things. And if he came in and wanted to do that, it's a different story. But to say he would have to, no, that feels disrespectful to Xavi. Fresh is trying to find something. They're all saying they want to retain Messi. No shock there.
Yeah.
They're all starting to have more things come out on what their plan would be. Victor Font says Xavi is the best person to try to convince Messi to stay. Messi, according to Font, he told Radio Marca, Messi has told us that what matters to him to stay is the sporting project. And he said, in this case, there is no one better to convince him than Xavi Hernandez. Looks like Jordi Cruyff is going to be involved if Laporta wins or if Font wins. And that's a little different because everybody's kind of picked their sides here. But Cruyff, according to different reports, would be part of Joan Laporta's team. Victor Font has announced publicly that Cruyff would be the sporting director in his project if he wins the election. Cruyff has said he would come for either one of those two guys. He's confirmed to both that he would be willing to come back. Jordi Cruyff said it's not about aligning with anyone. The candidates called him because in the case that they win, they want him in their team. We saw in the debate that all three have spoken with Xavi. That's what Oriol Dominic, who's a journalist on Esport Tres, said. Cruyff is a link to the past. He was going to manage in Ecuador, and then the pandemic hit. He has talked a lot about his vision for the game. I think a sporting director kind of role is a really good fit for him. I think overseeing the rebuild of La Masia is a really smart fit for Jordi Cruyff. We know, his legendary father, Johan Cruyff, and everything he brings to the table. Jordi has really taken those lessons from Johan and is modernizing them a bit and building off of what Pep Guardiola has done with those lessons and what others have done. So it makes sense. And it's a move that for either Laporta or Font, I get it. You would want him involved. You would want Xavi involved. So I think it's between those two. I think Fresh is by far the last, but I think it's Laporta. I don't think there's enough to say that Laporta is not the best guy to see this through. He did a good job in the past. Things went off track when he left. It makes sense that he would be the guy to get it now. So I think he wins the election on the weekend.
And the reason I ask is because, Freixa to me has always been the third man in who's trying to find the alternative. And while, yes, there are some common points among all three candidates, you're trying to figure out a way to get those extra votes and stay in the conversation. I've always thought that Freixa was third man in this discussion.
Yeah, I think he is. And it's not there for him because you've got two figures. I mean, Font was one fighting against Bartomeu a lot, so he's known, but Laporta's far better known. Like I think it's Laporta. I don't think they've done enough to say that he wouldn't be able to come in and do a good job. He's been also maybe the most quiet about bombastic plans, but I think that's actually helped him because he knows that's not going to fix Barcelona's situation, and I think people trust him to fix the situation. So, barring any surprises, I think it's Joan Laporta who wins it, and that's probably the best for stability. Now, is that the best to keep Lionel Messi? I don't know if it really matters. I mean, Freixa would be maybe the biggest wild card in that, but I think Font understands the role of Messi. I think Laporta obviously does, and they're going to do what they can to keep him. And I agree with what Font said. Messi will stay if he feels like they can be competitive. I don't think Messi is going to go out and chase money. I don't think Messi is going to go out and just chase glory. Like he could go to City, and I mean, City's amazing. What would he add to Manchester City right now? What would they be with him that they're not without him? They would have to change the way they play. Why should they?
Yeah.
Why would you change anything about what Manchester City's doing right now? PSG would do it, and they would spend a ton of money to do it because they need the relevancy. I don't think Messi really cares about that, to be honest. I think he's okay financially, as we've seen some of his salaries in the past. I think he also has a deep love for the club, and it's not quantifiable in terms of an amount of money. He's not going to make anywhere near what he's made before. They can't afford it. Cutting his salary down in a big way would give them a lot of flexibility. They're going to have to cut salaries in a massive way. The salary cap in Spain is going to come down. We talked about that on Soccer Over There. The revenues coming in, the expected revenues coming in, Barcelona's cap, which is already about 80 million less than Real Madrid, is going to go down 35 million. Real Madrid's is going to shrink 48 million. They're going to have to cut money from a cap and an amount of spend that they already needed to cut anyway because of their own internal issues. Messi taking less money will help in a big way, but Messi being there is a critical component to them bringing in revenue. You don't look at it, and I think it's really easy to do it, to say, oh, well, Messi was making all this money, so if you don't re-sign him, then you're good because you're not spending all that money. But not having Lionel Messi will cut your revenues.
Yes.
Messi brings in so much for the club and has brought in so much for the club. His value is not strictly an outgoing cash basis. His value of what he brings in revenue, you have to factor into this. And I think if he's not there, it's harder for Barcelona to bounce back. If he buys in, maybe Sergio Aguero comes, which has been talked about. Maybe a couple other guys come who on free transfers. I think they need to keep him, but they have to be in alignment. And this is where the balance is tough, and I agree with Bernd and what he's saying here in the Twitch pitch. You have to rebuild in terms of La Masia. You have to rebuild in terms of playing the young players. But I think you have to do that alongside another probably 2 years of Lionel Messi.
Yeah.
You need him to buy more time to do that. And you need him on board with doing that. And I think you need Xavi in there, and you need a Jordi Cruyff in there, and you need these people in there who understand what Barcelona is. Barca's not Milan, Inter, Real Madrid, Manchester City, PSG. Barca is always at its best when it looks inward, and it is an updated version of itself. Whenever they've gotten off track is when they've tried to be something they're not. What they are is a club that has an incredible DNA, an incredible idea of the way the game should be played, and an incredible emphasis on developing their own players. When they get away from that, they fail. But every time they do that, they then look back at who they are. And you saw it, I think, when they established who they were with Rinus Michels, with Johan Cruyff as a player. They reestablished who they were by bringing Johan Cruyff back as a manager. They then reestablished who they were when it got a little sideways at the end of the Frank Rijkaard era by turning to Pep Guardiola. They were able to continue that for a while. Then they got away from it. Now's the time to look back to it. I think Laporta understands that. I do think Victor Font understands that. And I think the people they're talking about with your Xavis, with your Cruyffs, with your others understand that. I think Messi understands that. And I think he understands that, look, his time to start thinking more about giving back to the institution is now, to leave it in a stronger place. So I think he will, as long as he feels like, look, we're not going to go into a rebuild and be fighting a relegation battle. We're not going to go into a rebuild that would lead us to not qualifying for Europe. As long as it's not that, and I don't think it needs to be that necessarily, he'll stay at Barcelona. Because I don't think Manchester City makes a big push because they shouldn't. And I don't think PSG will be able to give him enough to make it make sense for him. And I think Barcelona will be able to appeal to his heart, and he'll stay. That's still where I'm at. And I think you have to have his buy-in on the project, because it will be a project going forward in terms of getting Barcelona back to where they should be. They're not like out of the La Liga race right now. I mean, let's be real here.
Yeah, they don't stink.
No, they don't stink by any stretch, but they need help to get back to being the biggest and best club in Europe. They're not there, and that's the goal. Messi can help them get there, and I think he's needed to get truly where they can be.
I've come around full circle on this whole thing where Messi is concerned. I initially thought that he would be going to Manchester City or that he would be going to PSG, but to the point that we've been making on the show, Manchester City, they've kind of laid back and they're like, when we get there, we'll talk about it later. PSG, they've been in your face about it. It's like, yeah, we want Messi. And I've never thought of Messi as someone who's wired that way. So when someone is being very aggressive and laying out everything and laying out their strategy, I thought that might turn him off. And so I knocked out PSG first. And if it was going to happen with Manchester City, where do you put him? How do you fit with the players that are there? And what does it look like under Pep Guardiola? So I've come all the way back around to where Messi stays at Barca to help with the next stage. And I think that when you talk about heart, I think that the notion that he could have taken Barcelona to court, he could have, and he did not. That to me was one of the big indicators in all of this.
Well, hold on. He could have done that about a guy who, one, has now been arrested.
Yeah.
A guy who lied to him over and over again about different things, including money, and a guy who paid an agency to trash him on social media and then hid where the money came from. And to top off Bartomeu's ridiculousness, he was diverting money from La Masia for this, from the lifeblood of the club, to trash talk your biggest legend, your greatest manager in Pep Guardiola, to trash talk Gerard Piqué. You took money from the kids to trash these people. You tried to hide it. You get arrested over it. And Messi could have taken that guy who was president of the club at that time to court and probably won.
Yeah.
And he didn't because of his love for the club. Now you're talking about a president in Laporta or Font who is not Bartomeu and understands what needs to be done to move the club forward. They have different ways of looking at it, but yeah, if he didn't take that guy and that president to court, I think he's far more likely to stay and work with the next guy to get it right.
Yeah, and that's how for me, that was the beginning of me saying, nah, if he's not going to jump on Bartomeu for everything that he's done while Bartomeu's at the front of the club, then nah. His love for the club and his love for what it means to him and what it means to everyone around it, that to me means he's going to try to figure out a way to stay, and then they'll figure it out and try to get to the next stage.
Yeah, Couch says let Messi help stabilize the team on the pitch while the board go through the rebuild off it. Burns says the best solution would be if he participates in the rebuild, but he has to be clear, or it has to be clear to him, that they won't win Champions League with this approach. They may still win La Liga. Is that enough for him? I think it would be. I think it could be, because I think you're not saying you can't win Champions League. It's saying we're going to build the strongest club we can and do it the right way. If we win Champions League doing that, great. But our focus is winning domestically. Our focus is winning in the right way. Our focus is rebuilding our success from within. Can you win Champions League doing it? Yeah, you can. I mean, we see this year, Manchester City's the favorite. PSG's in that conversation. Bayern Munich, because they're the holders and what they do in Champions League. But it's not out of the realm of possibility that somebody else wins it, because the Champions League can be a crapshoot. So Barcelona needs to win La Liga. They need to be in that mix, and you see what happens. But their goal can't be to spend like PSG or to spend like City. They have to build from within. So I think he understands that well enough. I don't think he's chasing just a Champions League trophy. I don't get that sense. I think he's chasing more harder to quantify stuff. I do. I think he's going to be okay. I think it's going to work out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I think it has to do with leaving a legacy behind, in addition to all of the records and everything, but it's, your piece in building the future. And I think that means giving back to the club that's given so much to him. He's to that point to where he can help in that process now.
Yeah, I think so too. Other stuff in Spain, Valencia possibly has a potential buyer because they need money badly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Peter Lim not really in a good position to spend very much on Valencia, and it's showing right now with their poor form this year. You have the owner of a Malaysian Super League team, the Prince of the Malaysian state, Johor Tunku. Johor Tunku Ismail Ibni Sultan Ibrahim.
There you go.
It's a lot. Has expressed interest in purchasing Valencia from Peter Lim. This is, I guess, started on Instagram. Okay. He's not new in football. He's created a club that is a successful club in Malaysia. Wants to expand his empire, spread his wings, go for new challenges. He doesn't want to change the club logo or tradition. Here for glory, success, and history. What does Valencia need? You need someone who knows about football, hungry for success, passionate, and understand how big Valencia is as a club. That's some bold statements.
Yeah, and what was it over the past weekend when you're down 14th in the table and you're in a bit of a relegation scrap and one of your players says that you're effed? Your situation is effed?
Yeah, he said that a bunch.
So if you've built a Malaysian Super League club power, if you're serious, great. But if you're going to be serious, let's get serious about it instead of posting stuff on Instagram.
Well, he hasn't bought the team yet, so he can't really get serious about it just yet, John. That's a little harsh.
But it's like, but don't do it in like social media. It's like, okay, just like have your conversations and then sit there and it's like we've been having talks instead of sitting there and coming out on Instagram and saying, I want to buy Valencia. Just do it. Don't do it on Instagram.
Maybe they don't want to sell it just yet, and maybe he's trying to put pressure on that. You have heard how these deals get done, right?
Yeah, occasionally, yes.
Yeah, sometimes you got to play the game. Social media is part of it. It can be. You got to put that pressure on. It happens. Speaking of potential new owners for teams, and I'm sorry, Alex Basine, this is somewhat related to Newcastle, but not directly. Inter's got a few issues that we'll get into here in a second. One that was overblown, and let's try to squash this a little bit. Because local reports have squashed it, but I think it's still continuing in the English language reporting. The situation with Romelu Lukaku and paying the rest of the transfer to Manchester United and paying bonuses, there was a report that a payment was missed, but it sounds like it was actually mutually agreed on as a delay, which has also happened with Real Madrid with Inter. So it doesn't mean that they're good. It means that they're talking to the people they owe money to and saying, hey, we got it, but we need a little more time. And the people are saying that's okay. Because there was a report saying that Manchester United was going to say, oh, no, you owe us money now, and there's this clause in this here and this, so we're going to take Lautaro Martinez. And it's like, what? Huh? Yeah. That doesn't make sense.
Over 2 million euros?
Was he the collateral on the deal? I don't know. This doesn't make any sense. I think you can walk back from that, but it does show that Inter is not in a great financial position. They will have a new shirt sponsor next season, we'll talk about in a second as well. Does that reflect on this? They might have a new investor. And again, sorry, Alex, the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia has shown an interest in Inter. Sound familiar? Fortress Investment Group has also placed a bid to buy the club from Suning, who shut down their clubs in China to focus on their retail business. So if they shut down their clubs in the country that they are based in to focus on the retail business in said country, do they want to continue investing in Inter when they're having problems investing at the proper level right now because they owe a bunch of people money? You can do the math. Suning is looking for suitable partners. They are interested and ready to sell a minority or majority stake in the club. BC Partners showed an interest. They haven't reached an agreement. Suning values enter at €1 billion. Now Fortress, which is an American investment management firm, has made a preliminary bid to acquire a majority stake in the club, but maybe not the whole thing. The offer is partly equity, partly financing, and would also be aimed at refinancing the existing debt. And La Gazzetta dello Sport has said that Saudi Arabia's Prince Mohammed bin Salman is also interested and would be open to acquire a minority stake in the club through the Saudi Public Investment Fund. Up to 30% investment has been discussed there, €300 million. PIF doesn't want to buy it outright. Now, BC Partners, it looks like, are trying to buy a majority stake. PIF is looking to buy a minority stake. Would they do both, potentially? Maybe. Maybe Suning keeps part. Maybe they do the minority stake. Then maybe they sell what's left and they keep a little bit. I don't know. Suning needs money. We know that much.
Yep.
Would they be willing to do all of the above? Possibly. Well, let's wait and see. Also, according to Ben Jacobs, that doesn't mean the interest is completely done in Newcastle. But €300 million is a lot of money that maybe would have went elsewhere, and maybe you decide not to do the deal in Newcastle because of that. Or maybe it changes the terms of doing a deal in Newcastle. Or maybe you are waiting to see if Newcastle gets relegated and buying them for cheaper. Maybe, possibly. Sorry, Alex. I do need a GIF for sorry, Alex. I'll work on it.
Yes.
Sorry, Alex. I'm very sorry. And we'll see what happens, because Newcastle's going to be missing Miguel Almiron, Alan Saint-Maximin until April.
Although Wilson's still out.
Although, maybe not on Miguel Almiron. There's conflicting reporting. Paraguay's medical doctor, who has not examined Miguel Almiron's knee. Let's leave that up, and I don't know, maybe we need to start yelling about people not examining things and doing scans. I don't know. But Paraguay's medical doctor has said the knee injury is not a serious one.
And he has so he hasn't seen.
I don't think so, because I don't think he's Miguel in Newcastle. I don't know if
unless he's done the Asuncion to Newcastle flight and has been hanging out.
Did somebody send him the scans? I mean, is he looking at the scan and saying, "Oh, what that guy said's not true"? I look at it and see this. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, here's a PDF. Here's what it looks like. Oh, that looks different to me. But I haven't seen Miguel Almiron in person. Yeah. But it's not the same.
Now, he said that Miguel Almiron could be back for the World Cup qualifiers in Paraguay before the end of the month if all goes to plan. Now, there's also this whole idea that those qualifiers might get delayed because European clubs don't really want to send their players to South America right now, which is also another big factor. Welcome to soccer in 2021 during a pandemic. What would make the most logical sense for everybody except for CONMEBOL, because they need the Copa America to make money and they need that TV product to make money? What would make the most sense if you took that out of it would be to not do the March qualifiers, to do them in place of the Copa America in June. You won't, because of the financial considerations. And I don't know if CONMEBOL can rearrange the qualifiers to not do them here and in where they put those games to get everything done in time to have it. I don't know. So I don't know if there's even going to be qualifiers. I'm not buying the Paraguayan medical doctor. Wilson Gonzalez had those original statements, and our friend Roberto Rojas translated that and posted it on Twitter. I don't know if he would be ready to play. I seriously doubt that he would be. I don't know if there's going to actually be World Cup qualifiers in South America in March, and I don't know what's going to happen with Miguel Almiron in Newcastle, because what was said was that he's out until sometime in April. St. Maximin's out till sometime in April. And now, according to the Daily Mail, Matt Ritchie and Steve Bruce are involved in a sensational training ground showdown.
They had a dust-up.
A dust-up? Say it with an accent so it sounds cooler.
A dust-up?
Okay, that'll work.
That's Australian.
Yeah, where are you going with that one?
I had a dust up, mate.
Okay, Steve Bruce
Yes.
and Matt Ritchie turned into Australians in John's mind. Okay,
They did.
I like the phrasing in the Daily Mail better. A sensational training ground showdown.
Sensation. See, that's where you need like a monster truck guy. Sensational training ground.
No, it's more serious than that. I mean, hopefully it doesn't involve something like this. And the sounder, of course, doesn't want to play when I try to play it, so never mind.
Yes.
It's not good. The showdown is because, according to the Daily Mail, again, Steve Bruce physically confronted Matt Ritchie and barged into him after being called a coward by the player. So according to the Daily Mail, Matt Ritchie called Steve Bruce a coward. If you've seen the way Newcastle plays, you might think his approach is cowardly, maybe, possibly. Steve Bruce barged into him and physically confronted him. And yes, Kefsey, we are all stuck somewhere between Monster Truck and Micro Machine guys.
Yes.
I don't go as fast. I go slower and more serious. I'm not quite Monster Truck guy. I'm like sensational tabloid TV guy is where I go with that voice. But anyway, Jason Nick says Steve Bruce might have just fell over. He's very top-heavy. Maybe so. Possibly. But as Alex Basine says, Ritchie gives 0 Fs.
That is true.
If he called Steve Bruce a coward, then yes, absolutely. Dramatic movie announcer voice. Thank you, Mizzano. That's the one. That's it.
Or movie phone guy.
Sure, it could be movie phone guy or movie announcer guy. It's all the same. It needs it, and maybe this needs the all or nothing Newcastle excitement because then we would get the sensational training ground showdown.
Apparently, Ritchie has since apologized for the incident.
He's apologized for calling him a coward?
Ritchie has since said sorry for his part in the incident. That's how it was phrased by Talk Sport. Didn't say anything about sorry for what he said, but he is sorry for his part in the incident, according to Talk Sport.
You forced Abby to pull over because she was laughing too hard at your first attempt at the accent. She was driving, and she had to actually stop her moving vehicle because of your attempts at an accent. Good job, John.
Well, see, it's like I had Jim White from Sky Sports in my head, and it came out like Crocodile Dundee.
It's something. There's something we have not talked about yet that is on the board, and you will see it at the bottom, and you might say, what in the world is a claypole? First off, it is claypole. Claypole. And I think it was pronounced like different ways by every individual who was talking about them last night. They won the 5th division in Argentina, the Primera D. They won that. They're moving up to the Primera C, and they were in the Copa Argentina. And they played Boca Juniors last night. Big time Boca. They played at Lanús Stadium. There's nobody there, except for people from the clubs who were shouting some really horrible things at Boca towards the end of the game, as they should have been, because Boca barely beat Claypole. You could call it Claypole. In Argentina, they call it Claypole. But you can call it Claypole. It's okay. They scored first. They took the lead on Boca. And then they had a bunch of opportunities, including at the very end of the game. They had some great opportunities. They nearly beat Boca. I recommend very, very strongly to go and just do some searches, Boca, Claypole, however. I strongly recommend doing some searches for videos from the game, for the highlights first off, to see what it meant to these guys. For any of the post-game stuff, Te'ise stayed with it for a while after the game, and they were showing like the players from this tiny little club who, I mean, first off, they gave everything they had in the game and were straight up even with Boca. To after the game, when you like get out of that, okay, you're in the playing mentality. You're like, I can play with these guys. I can stand up to Edwin Cardona. I can play at the same level. And then it's okay. Afterwards, I play for basically an amateur team, semi-pro, what have you, for this tiny little club. And I just played these legends. Can I have your shirt? Can I have your autograph? Can I take a picture with you? Like, yes. It turned into that, and it was very, very cool to see. But some of the guys and some of the comments that they've made afterwards, this is the magic of the cup. This is what it can mean, and this is how special it can be. I saw a quote from one of the players who said something like, this is a day I will always remember in my football life. It's these guys, many of them probably will never get that opportunity again to play at that level, to play against a club like this. Incredible. And they nearly beat Boca. Nearly beat them. It's why you love this. Gustavo fills us in that journalism in Argentina is maddened by Boca's poor performance. Yeah, because it was horrible. They're playing Claypole.
It was beautiful.
Jared is excited about his new favorite team because he thinks they're Scottish somehow.
No, I jumped on this wagon when they got 33 red cards in a single game. And
well, both teams contributed
that was a long
to that.
time ago.
Yes.
But I was like, this is the team for me. They had this happen in their past. Also, go look on their Wikipedia. It's like, we got our inspiration from Sunderland, or one of the teams in England for our colors and our kit. Like, yeah, they haven't looked like that since that. No one's really sure if they ever had a kit like that. So there may be some kit fraud involved as well. This is a great team. And then to go do that last night, that just cemented everything for me.
Yeah.
To just go play toe-to-toe with a broken-ass Boca team.
They're playing like a broken-ass Boca team, that's for sure. It's bad. The match that Jarrett mentioned, Claypole and their rivals, Victoriano Arenas. All 22 players who were on the pitch, actually I think there were less than that because somebody was red-carded before that. I think maybe 2 people were red-carded before that.
Yeah, it wasn't all at once. It took about 5 or 6 incidents for everyone
for
to
sure.
Get hit.
There were,
was made it beautiful.
There were already red cards, but every player who was playing at the time this all really kicked off was red carded. The subs were red carded. 36 red cards in the match to everybody that was involved. That would be the 18-man game day rosters, both of them. Every single player. And this was pre the ability to red card coaches and people on the bench, or they would have been sent off too. It's amazing video, and it's not hard to find. Jarrett found it on YouTube. If you search for Claypole on Twitter, you're gonna come across it pretty fast. But the reaction to the goal and TNT Sports Argentina, it's TNT Sports AR, has a shot that you can see the players celebrating and what it means to them, but you also can see the Claypole, I think some of them are club administrators, members of the club who were able to be in the stadium and their celebrations in the stands, and it is the biggest thing. It is such an incredible deal. And Gustavo's right. Having a performance like this against a team of this size, even though they won, yeah, it can cost people jobs. And people are calling for Russo's head, the manager of Boca. They should be calling for it for all of the above because they've been bad before this. But yeah, you barely beat this tiny little team that then these people in the stands who are going nuts for their goal were cursing at your club at the end of the game, saying awful things that we're not going to repeat. Yeah. It was a pretty wild night in Argentina in the Copa. Jarrett was enthralled.
By the way, El Mataflow already found me a Claypole shirt on eBay too.
Oh,
so this is going to get worse before it gets better.
Great.
Yeah, I might need to get this too.
And we talked. He and I were chatting back and forth about it after the game, and it's like, part of me wanted to see this happen because I wanted to see what would happen with Boca's fan base, with their manager, had he lost to Claypole.
Oh, he would have been fired before they left. He would have been fired before he got out of the building.
In a game that they probably should have lost.
Yeah, they were outplayed. They were thoroughly outplayed. Go check out the information there. keep an eye on everything going on in MLS today. There will be plenty more conversation. More players will be speaking. More managers will be speaking. There's a ton of different things going on in the game. We're back on a normal routine. Thanks to everybody again who was patient with yesterday. I really appreciate it. Thanks for everybody who sent their well wishes. But we can't catch up in one day of stuff in 2 hours. It's impossible at this point. There's so much going on. Like Claypole. I need a link to this shirt. Jarrett, you're gonna have to hook
I'll
me
send
up.
it to you. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I'll send it to you.
I'm looking right now, and it looks like there's a medium, match worn, a size 4, which is a large, and there is an XL match worn from Argentina as well.
Check them out.
So as far as their possible kit fraud goes, so they wear black and white stripes or hoops. They go both ways. Their home kit is vertical stripes. Their away kit is a sash, and their third kit is hoops. They've got it all covered. It says the club was founded in 1923. It claimed the uniform was inspired by Sunderland, even though Sunderland has worn red and white since 1887.
Yeah, that was the part that was weird.
That's amazing.
It's like, did they see a black and white picture?
A little bit.
I don't know.
Yeah, just a little bit.
I'm a little baffled. Some of the stories of how Argentine clubs started, some of them just make no sense. Boca picked their colors from a boat that came into the harbor. Club Atletico Atlanta picked their name from that. It's all weird stuff. And Defensa y Justicia, which is one of the wildest names in the world of soccer, we don't know how that name came about. I haven't seen a credible story of how they came up with Defense and Justice as their club name. So that's what's beautiful about this game, though, right? Is learning these things and learning these stories and digging into it. We are not doing 3-hour Thursdays. It is coming. We will do 3-hour Thursdays eventually, and I think it will actually be Tuesdays and Thursdays that will include 3-hour shows. Soon enough. Not yet, though. Still catching up on some things. So we will be back for a show in the morning. Jarrett, hopefully you can join us then. I know I said the Claypole magic word, and you popped in at the end.
The Claypole bat signal?
Yes, basically.
Yeah, it happened.
It does.
Is what it is.
And ahead of tomorrow's show as well, we will finally, as I will be able to carve out some time, to post Jarrett's article. You want to tease it?
I mean, I guess, yeah. It is the companion piece to the 5 drunkest games in Atlanta United history. It is the companion piece to that deals with the beautiful rivalry that is Atlanta United, San Jose Earthquakes, and Common Sense.
There's
It is a triple threat match every 90 minutes for 90 minutes once a year, except for last year. That was 2020's greatest crime, was taking away a possible Atlanta San Jose match.
Yes, absolutely, because they're all drunken madness.
Yep.
Rampages.
The most tame game between those two teams that ever took place still involved 3 red cards, including Chris Wondolowski and Matisse Almeida getting ejected from the bench.
Yeah, I was trying to
words.
think, do I put that as the most tame, or do I put 17 as the most tame? And both of them are absurd. So
Yes.
I don't...
I mean, 17 still had 2 red cards and had Anton Walk scoring headers.
Yeah, and had one of the worst tackles that I've ever seen in Major League Soccer that only got a yellow.
Yes.
Emil Sadas somehow didn't get his legs completely shattered.
It might have been the first time that I absolutely lost my mind on commentary when I saw the replay of that tackle, because it looks like what you would expect to see on Mejores Patadas in a 5th division game in Argentina with somebody who is probably trying to get arrested. And it was a yellow.
Can go. It's on the official MLS highlights. If you go to YouTube, Atlanta United San Jose 2017, it's in the highlights.
Yeah,
the dude goes in and just skips across, and both legs come up right into Yamil Assad. And thank God he didn't hit him straight on, because if he hit him straight on, it probably would have shattered his tibia.
Yeah, it's insane. And that was part of that game. 18 we know was madness. 19 was madness. They're all madness. And Jarrett's going to break down. all
19 somehow Vega had the game of his life in 19. Otherwise, Atlanta should have had 6 goals in that game.
Yeah, it was drunken silliness. So that article will go up later today on soccerdownhere.net. Tomorrow morning we'll have the weekend preview for TV and such. All kinds of things are coming. So thank you for listening. Thank you for spreading the word. Thanks to anybody who hung out for the show, who is new to the show, from our Twitch Sports friends. Thank you. And we'll be back in the morning. Y'all have a good rest of the day. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.